It's never, ever too late. You have your body, and I use this word all the time, like biological. I'm a biology student. I'm a researcher. I love biology. It's a biological normal to be in a state of health. Homeostasis is health, right? That is normal. And so your body does everything it possibly can to be in that state. And when it can't be, it sends you signals. Here's your hair falling out. Here's your mood imbalances. Here's your PMS. Here's your bloating, right? Those are all signs that say, wait a second, I got to do something else.
Do you want to wake up feeling like you're stepping into who you're meant to be, into the best possible version of you? What if I told you that the key to your best life, health, and happiness are all around you? You just have to find what works for you. I'm Hope Pedraza, and I believe that there isn't just one way to live a healthy and meaningful life, and that all you need is a little inspiration to make changes that last from the inside out. Each week, I'll be sharing tangible tips and inspirational interviews to help you on your journey. These are the steps to take to improve your life and live with purpose. This is Hopeful and Wholesome. Hey y'all, welcome back to Hopeful and Wholesome. Today I have on the show Maranda Bower, and Maranda is the CEO and founder of Postpartum University, supporting both mothers and professionals in health, well-being, while eliminating postpartum depression and anxiety. And we are talking all about the postpartum period. And Maranda is such a wealth of knowledge on this. The conversation really is about how the postpartum period is really up to 6 years, y'all. And when I first heard this, my mind was blown. I'm like, there's no way. But Maranda really explains it in a way where you're like, okay, this makes total sense. So if you're wondering why your child is, 3 or 4 years old and you're like, why can't I get we're going to talk about that. So we're going to talk about the postpartum period and how the body changes years after birth, and it takes some years for our mental and emotional and physical pieces to kind of all come back together. And I love this conversation, and I love Maranda so much. I'm actually having her back on this show, and she'll be back. Let's see, I think her next episode will come out probably in another month or so. But she's just such a wealth of knowledge, and I love this. So even if you have a child that's older than 6 years old, I highly recommend listening to this episode and sharing with a mom friend who has kids that are under 6 years old, and they're wondering why they feel like their life is falling apart. So I just love this conversation. Let's jump in with Maranda.
All right, y'all, let's jump in. I'm here with Maranda, and we're talking all things postpartum today. Super excited to bring all this conversation. I was telling Maranda before I hit record, I have such a broad audience. All you ladies, it's just kind of across the spectrum. So I feel like we'll have something for everybody today, I feel like. So this is such a conversation. And two, I mean, everybody has some sort of postpartum mom in their life. So you can share the episode with somebody that you know or a family member. So such a good conversation to have. Thanks so much for joining us today, Maranda.
Thank you so, so much for having me. And I think a lot of people don't realize that postpartum is not the first 6 weeks, right? Postpartum is at least 6 years, if not longer, depending on who you are and how you've been able to heal and the birth experience. And it affects your menopause. The way you experience postpartum affects your menopause. So it's like such a huge conversation.
Yeah, it really is.
So many people.
Yes, It really is. And it's funny you say that, because I was just having this, literally, it's probably last week, I was having this conversation with my clients at my studio, because I saw this Instagram post, and she was like, oh, the postpartum period can take up to 7 years. And I'm like, what? Like, I'd never heard that before. And we were talking about it, and I'm like, I guess it makes sense. So I kind of want to start there, because I think that's something so many women don't know. And I think that, there's so many changes to, your life and your body and all the things, that I think we're so hard on ourselves, thinking like, oh, I should be adjusted by now. Like I should be, you know what I mean? And it's like you're saying, like this postpartum period can be up to 6 years. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's so crazy. Like, first off, our society is just not very supportive of this, right? You go to Google and it tells you that your hormones are supposed to be back to normal by 4 weeks. right? You go to your doctor and your doctor was like, yeah, absolutely. Your uterus is back to its pre-pregnancy size at that 6-week mark. So you're good to go. And you're like, what does that mean? Right? Because I am still, flailing about trying to figure out life. And that's so true, because it's not just about hormones, which, by the way, are nowhere near where they're going to be at 4 weeks. It's not just about your uterus going back to its pre-pregnancy size at 6 weeks. There's so many other components of our bodies that are going through a transition of healing. I mean, you grow a human being with your body. That is a lot. Can we just sit on that for a second?
Totally.
And then the birthing process itself, no matter how you've birthed your baby, no matter if you felt it was easy or traumatic, over 30% of women in the US label their birth as traumatic. So we know that in itself is a healing process. And then postpartum, where you're bleeding, you've got milk coming out of your breast, you're sustaining the life of a human being in this brand new body that just went through this birth that can barely stand and walk straight because you no longer have this giant belly. There's so many components of this, right? The way our body shifts in the postpartum period is something that nobody really talks about. We know that our bodies change. It almost sounds cliche to say, oh, your body's going to change in postpartum. But we're not talking about what those changes are. It takes a solid 2 years for your brain to go through all of the necessary changes. So your brain significantly changes. Your neural pathways, the gray matter, your brain size, all of that to accommodate the birth of a baby. That happens, and it takes a solid 2 years to get back to a normal for that.
That's crazy.
It takes your joints and ligaments 6 to 9 months to return after the postpartum period to their pre-pregnancy state. So we don't talk about that either. It takes an average of 4 to 6 years for you to feel like you're finally finding a new normal, where you feel emotionally and socially ready to be yourself again, that new self, right? And we don't talk about I can go in so many, different ways, the way, our body and the nutrients that we need and to recover from growing a human being, from birthing a baby, from sustaining that life outside of our womb, the amount of nutrients that requires, takes a solid 2 to 3 years postpartum to recover from. And so oftentimes, if you're like me, you end up postpartum and pregnant again, right? You're pregnant with your next baby afterwards. And then you're going through that journey of healing and, creating life again. So it's an ongoing process. And oftentimes we forget that. And really, our society doesn't even teach us about this. And dare I say, our society doesn't even teach providers this information.
No, absolutely not.
Not in the least bit. Doctors are not trained in nutrition. Nutritionists are not trained in postpartum nutrition because how you digest food dramatically shifts in the postpartum years. We don't talk, counselors are not trained in perinatal mental health. They actually have to go to a separate learning facility. So as a mental health provider, a counselor, a therapist, whomever, you have to go to a secondary learning education to get that information. It doesn't come with your degree, right? And so it's amazing to me how little our world, our providers, our families, our mothers, our sisters, our friends, they don't know this stuff because they were never taught this stuff, right? And we're all told that this is normal. It's okay to have hormone imbalance. It's okay to feel like crap. Postpartum depression and anxiety are at astronomical levels, and that's all been normalized because we don't know how these bodies change, and we don't know how to care for them through these changes so that they thrive.
Right. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I could go so many directions on this, and just the fact of how much or how little postpartum women are taking care of, period, right? We're expected to go back to work after 6 weeks and be like, oh yeah, it's fine. I'll just, leave my baby. And while I'm still like, that's a whole other conversation. And then, yeah, we're expected to, the whole bounce back thing, which really drives me crazy. Like we're supposed to bounce back, right? Like, okay, that's dumb. And then now, like hearing you say it takes 2 years for your brain to like adjust. That's insane. Like, but we're just like, oh no, it's 6 weeks. You should be good. You can work out and go back to work now. Like nothing ever happened. Like it's insane to me.
Yeah, carry on.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah.
Like do all of the things, and you're supposed to get all of the sleep and your baby's supposed to be perfect and you're supposed to make all of the money and manage all of the children and cook all of the meals and have the house clean. And like, no. I specifically remember I got pregnant with my third. I have 4 children. And I got pregnant with my third. And I remember just sitting there and I was like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Having 2 kids is one thing, having 3, like that felt really overwhelming in the moment. And my husband was like, you got this, you can do everything. And I remember being like, oh my gosh, you're right. I can do everything, but I don't want to
exactly.
I remember standing up from the table, like, and there's just like huge empowering moment. Like, I don't want to. Of course I can, but I don't want to.
Right.
And just coming to terms with that. Like, it is totally okay for you not to want to do all of the things you have to. Like, of course you're Superwoman, right? Yeah, we got that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can do all the things, but why would you want to?
Right.
And really, it's not self-sustaining.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, it's, could you or should you? Those are 2 different things, right? Just because you can't doesn't mean you should. And I have that conversation with some of my clients so many times. Like, I know you can do all these things, but should we be doing all of these things? Like, no, the answer is no. And yeah, I mean, and I think that's the other piece of it is, to your point about how much pressure society puts. I mean, the pressure, and I remember having this conversation with my husband and he was like, well, no, I think you put that pressure on yourself. Like, no, this is societal pressure. Everybody puts pressure on us. When are you going to come back? When are you going to do this? When it's like the pressure is on us you have the baby and then you just keep forging on. But there's so much pressure. And like you said, nobody's telling us all of these changes that are going on because that's really the next question I wanted to ask you, because we're having all these changes and you're saying it can take up to 6 years. So what are, I guess, some of the best ways that we can be supporting ourselves in this potentially 6-year-long period of postpartum?
Yeah, I love this. So I have a Mama Thrive method that I teach to everyone. So my work is working specifically with not just the mothers, but the providers who serve them. So this is the method that I teach them. And it's 5 points. So first is support, whole body support, right? It's different for everybody what this looks like, but you need to find something that is going to be there to support you. And it's going to look different throughout those 6 years. Right? But you need some sort of emotional support, hands down. Where are you going to find that? Lots of people choose counselors, therapists. Sometimes people have gone to those and those don't work because they're not trained in postpartum care, right? Or whatever the case may be. Find a friend, find a coach, find somebody that you can trust to share your thoughts with, to share your feelings with, to process things.
I want to interrupt you there before you go to the next one. Do you just, in your experience, because you work so much with postpartum women, do you recommend, because you're saying like for those who are actually trained to work in postpartum, it's a whole, like mental health providers, it's a whole separate training, right? So do you recommend like seeking someone out who has that training or someone who's just like kind of generally trained? Is that sufficient or is that?
It's not sufficient. If you've got birth trauma or postpartum or pregnancy trauma, which is not something that we ever talk about, if you have perinatal mental health, right? So that means postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, postpartum OCD. I was diagnosed with postpartum bipolar for one of mine, right? There's so many mental health challenges. If they have cropped up for you in that postpartum period, find a professional who understands that. Because the way in which women are cared for during this postpartum period. Again, we're going back to the psychological shifts that take place, those brain changes. You need a provider who's going to understand that.
Right.
You're going to need a provider who's going to understand the significance and the role of nutrition in your mental health, right? You're going to need a provider who understands like breastfeeding and how important your relationship is, if that's what you choose. Or, I've seen so many mental health providers tell mamas that, oh, well, you're breastfeeding, and so therefore I can't really help you, and you have to stop, or you have to stop breastfeeding at night, or
oh Lord,
you have to stop feeding at night, or whatever the case may be. You got to do, and they're not understanding that mama baby dyad, or they're not understanding the mother's wishes and the ideas that she has of what it means to be a good mother, or to feel good in her body and her mothering relationship. And so you need somebody who can understand that and appreciate you for where you are in your space.
Yeah.
So yes, highly recommend somebody who's trained. It's not the easiest thing, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not somebody who's local. Like sometimes it's somebody who is, telehealth is an amazing thing. COVID didn't do a lot of great things, but that was one of them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So telehealth, find somebody, anybody who can be there to support you. And then find somebody in the practical world, right? Like if you're in a position to hire a doula, or you're in a position to hire food services, or, somebody to come clean your house, do it. And if you're not, and I was not for a very, very long time, I understand this immensely, but I tell my moms, get creative. Find another mom who's going through the exact same thing and do it together, right? Or trade services. I have a dear friend of mine who was like, I need to clean out this room. I'm so overwhelmed and I don't know what to do. And so her friend was like, I have the exact same problem. I have this room that I need cleaned. And so they were like, why don't we just spend a day doing each other's?
That's so smart.
And so they got, a bottle of wine, and they got some music, and they helped each other. And it's like, that's what we need. And as mothers, we can do the same thing. I'm feeling overwhelmed cleaning my room, or I'm cleaning my house, and the other mom, find somebody else who's feeling overwhelmed with it too, and do it together.
Yep.
You can do the same thing with meals. You can do the same thing with childcare. Like, I need space. Great. You take my kids for a night, and, for a couple of hours, right? Like, I don't even care if you throw on a Disney movie,
right?
Some popcorn, take them for a little bit. I'm going to go be by myself, right? Or I'm going to have some time with my partner, whatever it is that you need. And then next week I've got you. I'll take your kids, and we'll do the same, and we'll rotate. And so finding that space, finding that support system, right? And you might love to cook and not need help with cooking, but you dread cleaning your house, right? Like, look at the areas in which you need the most support. I live here in Alaska. So sometimes it's like, I've got to find somebody to take care of my animals, right? Like the horses and the chickens and the dogs, right? Because I just can't do that right now. I don't have the mental capacity for it.
Right.
Somebody else. Delegate, right? So that's first and foremost step number one. What is it that you need? And it also includes chiropractic care, massage therapy, right? Like, whatever it is that you need, that you're in the space to allow for, if you have the ability or the privilege to have, do that for yourself now.
Yep.
Right. The second is nourishment, nutrition. Again, you grew a whole baby with your entire body. And the way in which we care for ourselves in pregnancy is different than how we would care for ourselves nutritionally in postpartum.
Right.
And again, we don't talk about this. It's like, here's your extra 300 to 500 calories and you should be golden. It's like, no, we're forgetting the deep, deep nourishment that must come from all the foods that we eat. And because we're in such a huge shift, not only is our body healing from giving birth, right? It takes a lot to give birth. We're healing from growing a human being who's taken a lot of our nourishment and has taken a lot of nourishment in general. If you're breastfeeding, you need that much more. But also you're healing your body. Your hormones are shifting. Those brain changes are happening, right? Your cells need more, like literally your uterus, your insides, like they're shifting, they're changing. They need nutritional support. What are hormones made out of? Nutrition, nourishment, right? And so it's your body is in a natural hormonal shift. It's a biological normal. But when that biological normal isn't supported with things like nutrition, that's when the imbalance happens. That's when postpartum depression and anxiety and intrusive thoughts and all of those things, and postpartum autoimmune disease, we don't talk about that one either. That's when that emerges. And nourishment plays a significant role in this. I mean, I can't even tell you how often. And we don't even talk about the changes that occur within the postpartum body during this time. The way you process and digest foods is radically different. Like, I won't get into it here because it's a whole different, like I have an entire certification program on this. Like it's extensive, but literally your insides, your gut changes and postpartum. And so you need meals that are nourishing, that are easy to digest, that are full of nutrients. Because if you start eating salads and smoothies, right? The things that we say are super healthy, they're going to sit in your gut longer. They're going to wreak havoc. They're going to cause problems later down, bloating, gas, stomach issues. That leads to depression, anxiety. All of those things are inherently linked. And mood disorders and, hormone imbalances, all the things, your hair falling out, right? We've called that very normal. It's not normal to lose a massive amount of hair. That's a nutritional issue. So I can go on and on, but that's step 2. Step 3 is making sure you get enough sleep. Again, a whole nother podcast. How do you get enough sleep with a newborn?
Right.
We're so focused as a society on how to sleep train our baby,
right?
How to make our baby sleep, but we forget the biological normal, right? Of it's okay to be with our baby. It's actually normal and healthy to sleep with your baby and to wake up many times at night, but you can still actually get the support you need and the sleep you need during those times if we were to support you in the ways in which you need, right? The other component is nervous system regulation. And this is a huge one. This is like nutrition and nervous system regulation are like besties right here. It's so important. And we're in such a state of transition during this time. And again, I talked about the brain changes that take place, the neuroplasticity that's underway within your brain. Literally, your brain is rewiring, and you're in this unique space to truly care for your body in a way in which you haven't, and heal your body in a way in which you haven't been able to. So oftentimes I see a lot of past traumas come up and during this time, things that have been put off to the side, relationship issues, anything that has been brushed under the rug, even things that we've been to therapy for years, right? Come rearing up during this time. And I call them invitations to heal. That's what these are. So we're in this space of, we use words like, we're so raw and vulnerable and postpartum. We feel we've been split wide open, right? Oftentimes we come close to death. Like these are the feelings that women express and the way in which they share these words of what postpartum has been or what the birth experience has brought them to. And all of that is real and true and has a direct effect on our nervous system and the way in which we process the things that have happened in our lives. The birth experience also, the way our brains are changing, we're in such a unique space to heal deeply. There are cultures around the world that believe that we are closest to God during this time than at any other time in our entire lives. And only women get the privilege of this because of our unique ability to heal not only the current wounds that we're experiencing, like the postpartum, wound, but also the emotional wounds, the childhood trauma, the generational and ancestral traumas, all of that comes up during this time. And we need tools to be able to process that.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes we don't have any. So we're dealing with this huge shift on top of, what does it mean to be a mom? On top of, lack of sleep and not getting the care we need, and the lack of support, and society's putting the pressure on us to do all of the things. And now we have these childhood traumas coming up, and we have these traumas of, the way our mother raised us, and which we don't want to raise our children that way. And there's so many components, right? And so we need that support. We need that help. We need nervous system balance. We need help with our nervous system. And so I give lots of practical strategies for doing that in the postpartum period. I wrote a book, Reclaiming Postpartum Wellness. I talk about several of those. One of them is like TRE therapy, where you can literally use, we talk about shaking, right? Shaking in postpartum, like after you've given birth, that's a biological normal way of removing trauma from your body. So how do you induce that state and control that state, right? So it doesn't feel something out of control, that you can literally shake out the trauma within your body, like practical tools that feel good that you can use. Journaling is a great one, obviously counseling and therapy. But so many different ones that are just really, really beneficial to our nervous system, so that we can help not just cope, but heal.
Yeah, those are so good.
And then the other one, the fifth one, is following the natural rhythms and rituals of our bodies. And as women, we have been taught to disregard our cycles. We have been taught to hate our cycles. I mean, how many of us, I was included in this for many years. I hated my period, right? It was such a burden.
Yep.
And we live in a very masculine world. And when we come back to our bodies, especially in postpartum, and we were gifted an opportunity to check back in with the rhythms of our worlds, and to be able to honor those things that we need, and honor our times, right? There are times, and a woman's life is very cyclical, where if a man's is very like go, 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 go. He has a cyclical rhythm that is in a 24-hour period. So he goes through all of his rhythms in a 24-hour, and every day he starts fresh, right? And so he just go, 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 go. Whereas a female, her cyclical rhythms are on a 28 to 32 day rhythm, right? The cycle of the moon, right? It's a completely different rhythm. So we have these highs, and we have these lows, and we have these dips, and we have these bends. And to be able to understand those as they come to us, chart those, get to know them better and honor those. I now in my life, when I'm ovulating, I can get a million things done. Like it feels like I look at my to-do list and I'm like, oh, I got this. Boom, 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 boom. Right. If I look at my to-do list right before my period, I'm going to cry.
Yep. Burn it to the ground.
It's done. Right. And I recognize that, and I can build my life around that. So I built my business around that. Right. Where right now, like this is ovulation time. I am like, this is my time to just like really get out there and shine and share and do all of the things. And when my period comes, I'm going to be in a state of like, I'm just going to rest and reflect. And I note that in my business, and I have less appointments, and I have less to-dos, and my personal life as well. Right. We don't get out and do all of the things. We're not going out camping. We're not doing this and we're doing that. We're chill. And then we go into a flow of, okay, let's get all the things done. Right. And I accomplish so much more following the rhythms of my body. And I feel better following the rhythms of my body. I'm not crashing hard. And so learning that for yourself is hands down one of the best things that you can do. So that's what I call my Mama Thrive method. It's my 5-point method. And I wrote a whole book on it. So you can get that. But that is how we truly heal in the postpartum years.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are so good. Those are so good. And I like you mentioned this at the beginning because the postpartum, like you were saying, it kind of affects us forever, right? It changes us forever. And you were mentioning how it can affect how our bodies cope with menopause. So can you speak to the women who are listening who are perhaps past this postpartum phase, the 6-year period? How does it affect, maybe in terms of perimenopause or menopause? Like, how does it affect you in that time of your life?
This is such a good topic and one that I love immensely. So there's several changes that are happening, obviously, right? And your body, we've got the neuroplasticity of your brain is changing. We've got emotional things that are transpiring, that are shifting. We have microchimerism, right? Which is the baby cells of your body that enter into the bloodstream of a mother. And they are basically like stem cells, right? And so they have the ability to heal wherever a mother needs if she's nourished. It also has the ability to do the opposite. They're finding that microchimerism in the cells of your baby is also responsible for autoimmune disease during this time, right? And your body fighting itself and attacking itself during this time. So that is a very beneficial phase. And when we're not cared for and supported, that shifts things for us. We're literally, our brain changes, our hormonal changes, those find a stable point at some point in time after postpartum. We have this rapid change, and then eventually they level out into a new normal, which might not be normal, right? So you're rewiring your brain, you're setting the hormonal pathways on, you're teaching your body what is normal for you. So nowadays we see tons of autoimmune issues on top of it because we weren't able to care for it. Nobody told us how to care for our body. Nobody supported us through that process. Thyroid problems, stomach concerns, like autoimmune issues are so much on the rise. And especially in postpartum, and they're happening because of all of these significant changes that become the normal within your body, right? So I'll give you an example. If you are, 6-7 years postpartum and you've developed some autoimmune issues, right? Maybe fibromyalgia is another common one that we hear often, but maybe a thyroid issue, right? Affects 1 in 7 women. That becomes your new normal. Now, and that greatly impacts your menopause down the road. How you heal in postpartum affects your menopause because of these things. Your brain changes, they become your new normal. That is who you are, right? So oftentimes I share with moms this period of time in postpartum, it's so unique, especially with your brain. You need somebody to be there to support you and to nourish you and to care for you and tell you that you're doing the right thing. So you develop the confidence that you start understanding and trusting your mother instincts, right? And if you have a mother-in-law, this is the common one, right? Or a mom who is telling you, no, you should do it like this, or I don't understand why you did it that way, or maybe you should try doing it this way instead. I think my way is better, right? What you're doing is you're rewiring your brain to consistently not believe in yourself, right? To be self-conscious, to question yourself, to not develop that maternal instinct in the way that feels good to you. And you live with that. Now, with that said, of course, you always have the ability to change, right? You might be in that perimenopausal phase or menopausal phase, and you're like, okay, I can see the relationship between what's happening in my body now and how I experience postpartum. You can still change that. It takes a lot more work. It does. It takes a lot of support, right? This is where coaching is really, really important. So if you're listening into Hope, like this is the time, right? Really get that support that you need because you're going to need it more than ever to heal during that time. and whatever else support systems that you need in place, but you can do it. You can rewire the brain when not in postpartum. Mm-hmm. You can fix your gut health. You can heal from autoimmune disease. You just have to find the people who can support you through that, because it's a long process.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that was going to be, you just answered the next question, because I'm sure there's people listening that are like, well, crap, it's been, 20 years and I'm dealing with this, and this. Is it too late? But it's never too late.
It's never, ever too late. You have your body, and I use this word all the time, like biological. I'm a biology student. Like I'm a researcher. I love biology. And so it's a biological normal to be in a state of health. Mm-hmm. Homeostasis is health, mm-hmm. right? That is normal. And so your body does everything it possibly can to be in that state. And when it can't be, it sends you signals.
Yep.
Here's your hair falling out. Here's your mood imbalances. Here's your PMS. Here's your bloating, right? Those are all signs that say, wait a second, I got to do something else. Something's not right here. I need to address something. I need to care for something, mm-hmm. right? And so when those things are cared for in the way in which it needs, then those fall apart and you become back into your homeostasis, healthy self, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. I know I oversimplified it, but I promise you, as a mom, right, here's my experience. I have 4 kids. I suffered extreme postpartum depression and anxiety. I had bipolar with one of them, postpartum bipolar. I developed an autoimmune disease, ulcerative colitis, after my second. I had even grown a tumor in my stomach after that experience. Like, I can tell you the number of things that I have experienced, and I have healed from every single one of them using my postpartum experiences. And I promise, like, yes, postpartum is so, like, you can go one way or you can go the other. Mm-hmm. Right. And so you can use that to your advantage, but also, like, even if you're not in that space, you can heal. We see it over and over and over again in the women that we work with, because I have the privilege of working with so many professionals. I train a lot of doctors and midwives and lactation consultants and all of that. Oftentimes they've had kids 20 plus years ago.
Right.
And they're here because they're doing the training to support, their job or their business or whatever. And they're like, oh my gosh, I've got to start implementing this. Mm-hmm. And they do, and they see the results. Mm-hmm. So it's not just for this period of time, right?
Right. Yeah,
you can apply totally. That at any time.
Absolutely. Yes, for sure. Such good information. And as we start to wrap up here, I have another question I want to ask you. And this was I love tangible things that people can walk away with. And this was like, you can go back and take notes. Everything Miranda just said was like, just go do everything she just said and then get her book and fill in the holes. But before I ask you my last question, can you let everybody know where they can find out more about you and everything you do? You have books, you have trainings, you have so many things.
Yes, absolutely. So one place you can go to get everything is my website, postpartumu, that's the letter U.com. We have a podcast. We do have lots of trainings. We have a membership for mamas. We have a membership for professionals as well to get lots of training, certifications, those kinds of things. So lots of amazing places that you can find us. You can find us on Instagram. That's where we hang out the most. And so come hang out, say hello, learn a couple of things about it, ask questions. We totally fill our DMs. I'm happy to answer your questions and get you the support that you need.
Love it. Thank you so much for that. The last question, of course, y'all put notes to all that in the show notes or links to that so y'all can go check all those out. The last question that I want to ask you that I like to finish off with, what do you think is the most important thing you can do to live with purpose?
I love this question. To live with purpose, the most important thing that you can do is follow your heart. And I feel like that is almost a little cliche. It's like, well, duh. But I think it's so much easier said than done.
Totally.
Because we come with so much baggage. We come with so much hurts and traumas and wounds. And the inner work of going through that, the processes of going through that to find your heart that's where it is. That's where a lot of that healing is. And that living in that space and being purposeful.
Yeah. I love that. That's beautiful. Such a great answer. I love it. Thank you so much, Maranda. This was such a powerful conversation. And y'all, like I said at the beginning, if you aren't a mama who's in this period, but you know somebody who is, share this episode, go send them links to Miranda's Instagram and all of this stuff. Like, let's help each other out. I think that's, I mean, the moral of all of this. Like, let's help each other out. We have resources. We have people like Maranda who know so much more than any of us have been led on to, because we're not taught any of this. So thank you so much for what you're doing, Maranda, and just the difference you're making for so many mamas out there, and just sharing your gifts.
Thank you so much, Hope. I appreciate you and your time and attention and all the amazing things that you're doing in your world. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Hopeful and Wholesome, y'all. If you found value in this week's episode, please subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcast and leave a review to let me know what you thought. I'd love to know what you find useful in these episodes so I can know how to provide the most value I can to my listeners. And if you have topics you'd like to know more about, I'd love to hear those as well. So shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. It's @TheHopePedraza, or you can visit my website, hopefulandwholesome.com. Thanks, y'all.